Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you for. I know it's 10 a.m. in Cannes on the first day, so we appreciate your engagement and your attention, which, ironically, is what we're going to talk about today. If you haven't been to a group chat, the format is obviously in the round here. We do this on the premise that a actual conversation doesn't happen when you're sitting in a row. It actually happens much better when you're actually looking at each other. So, and I will start the conversation with our friends at Viant. Thank you for working with us on this. It's a very interesting topic, one that I think is probably long overdue to really get into. And we will then open it up. I just ask of our panelists, our provocateurs, as we say, to provoke one another, but as politely as possible. And whenever possible, be as specific as possible, because we have a very high-value audience here, and they want to hear very specific things about what you're working on and how you are succeeding and not. So with that, what we're going to start with is a round of introductions, and I'll start over here. And just, okay, so in 10 words or less, who you are, what you do, and then the icebreaker today is, before we talk about measurement and attention, let's talk memory. Introduce yourself and share an ad campaign or brand moment you still remember years later.
Awesome. Hi. So I'm Anna Johnson, and I oversee precision media and marketing analytics at Molson Coors. And an ad or a moment that I still remember to this day, felt like it was very relevant because we're talking about, CTV and attention, is the Tubi Super Bowl ad from a few years ago, the interruption ad, right, where they made everybody think that they had sat on their remote. Awesome, because it made literally everybody kind of look up and take a moment to be like, what is this for? So that's that.
Cool. Hey, everybody. So nice to meet you. I'm Dan Reynolds. I work at Hilton Hotels. I look after our global marketing team, which is inclusive of all of our go-to-market, creative, and media. When I think about a campaign that captured my attention, not to plug one of our own things, but a couple of years ago, we did this thing called the 10-minute TikTok. And it was a moment in time where we kept people for 10 minutes viewing something on a platform where people were watching for 18 seconds. And so when I think about attention, that's one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Chris Vanderhook. I'm a co-founder and chief operating officer at Viant. Wow, the ads. I should have read that. I'm gonna go. When I was a kid, I used to see these U.S. Army commercials, "Be All That You Can Be," which I thought it did earn my attention. I just remember as a kid thinking, that looks really badass. But then I found advertising. This was a lot safer, so I didn't do that. But there we go.
Hi, everyone. Holly Dunn. I am the head of investment in the U.S. for Havas Media Group. Let's see, an ad. I think the one that always speaks to me in my heart has an emotional connection is that Volkswagen Darth Vader commercial, little boy dressed up in the Darth Vader costume. I think it's one that just continues to stick with me. And I think those emotional connections, having a kid at that point that was young, really, that's the goal that we should all be striving for.
It's such a startling image. Small child, Darth Vader mask, and then the music comes in. Yeah, brilliant.
Hey, everybody. I'm Bennett Richardson. I'm the Chief Marketing Communications Officer at the National Association of Realtors. I represent the real estate industry. And I loved your Tubi example, and I loved that kind of playing with expectations or thoughts around attention. It reminded me of one that I loved, which was Coinbase did this bouncing DVD screensaver QR code a few years ago, and I feel like that was such an interesting way to kind of mess with people's heads around attention as well. It wasn't some big striking creative. It was like, what the heck is going on screen there? I definitely scanned the QR code to check it out, so I love that.
I think everybody in the advertising industry saw that. Everyone else was freaking out, and all of us were like, oh, there they go. Look at what they did.
Exactly.
Cara, Hutchinson. I'm at Bayer Consumer Health, and I run commerce media now, but I'm programmatic ride or die for a long time. Ad campaign, it's definitely going to be the Mazda Zoom because I own 3 Mazdas now, and it's probably because of that campaign.
My name is Yan Liu. I'm co-founder CEO at TVision. So I was about to talk about the QR code thing because at TVision, every year we have to take logs of every single ad during the Super Bowl. Initially, I thought my TV was broken. It's like, what's going on? There's a QR code. So I definitely still remember that.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you all just said is that there's an element of attention grab and like a real flash of a moment, and I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about today. I think, Chris, I'll start with you. When you think about how hard it is, right, to capture people's attention, so much of the media landscape, particularly on CTV, has been historically about reach and frequency. But are we just getting it wrong? I mean, and how wrong are we getting it if we are?
Yeah, great question. I don't think we're getting it wrong. I don't think that. I think reach and frequency certainly has its place. If you're trying to reach, women 18 to 49, you need to reach as many of them as possible with wide frequency. So it builds memory structures in the brain. I think where we are now, though, in digital, as we look, linear moving into CTV, there's new technologies that are out there that allow us to go a step further. So reach and frequency is good, but are we actually earning the attention of the consumer? And I like to say, we look at the data from TVision a lot, and there is truly a war going on for the consumer's attention, and brands have to earn that. So I think there's new technologies out there that's allowing us to actually go further. And I think that it won't just be reach and frequency. We're going to include attention in that. Are we earning the attention of the consumer?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then, Jan, for those of you who aren't familiar with TVision and your acquisition by Viant, talk a little bit about how this is going to work between the two companies.
Sure. So when I started the company back in 2015, it's an easy concept. So it's advertising. We are spending money to get attentive audience. However, the currency for video for a long time being GRP, ratings, impression, that only tells you what's going on with the TV as a device. It's not about people, right? We are all about getting attentive audience. So if that's the true objective, why not we simply going to measure how many attentive audience sitting in front of TV? So I was a grad student at MIT, and we built the device, and we decided to put that in people's home to really understand the true attentive audience, how many people they are to watch your ads. So that's kind of how we started. So now, fast forward 11 years, we're part of Viant, and now we really accelerating the journey to use our data as part of the DSP process.
So, and I know you have some findings for some of our provocateurs here. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. But this is more of a jump ball for anybody. I think one of the things that I'm fascinated by is how the technology of CTV can allow for a different kind of attention measurement, and yet, it seems like largely still based on a linear TV model. And so I'm just curious for those, whether Hilton or National Realtors or who, like how you are thinking about the shift and what difference, how you are analyzing data and what you'd like to see more of. Anybody?
I mean, I can take it. So,
yeah.
So we've been using attention data for a few years at Havas, woven into our planning tools and systems. And one of the barriers to activation has really been, and I think we might have talked about this on the prep call, has been that brands and clients don't want to change the measurement outcome that they're optimizing towards. So how can you still proceed with attention, buy against attention data without changing the measurement optimization outcomes that you're looking to optimize towards? Like, brands want to optimize towards sales or audience engagement or whatever, not necessarily towards a goal of attention. You should use attention as the foundation for what you're doing and plan towards high attention engagement opportunities and messages so that you're meeting the consumer there, making sure that the foundation is led with attention.
Yeah, and just to kind of build on that, that's kind of exactly how we're thinking about it, because at the end of the day, we need to sell more beer, right? And that's what we're trying to do. And kind of on the other hand, we already have, just like so many metrics already in our ecosystem. So Molson Coors, frankly, we talked about this, also has been slow to adopt attention, right? And part of that has been because we spent so much time building our ecosystem to be able to determine, like, okay, are we selling more beer with what we're doing? Okay, now that we have that, I think there's definitely an opportunity to bring metrics like this back into the fold. Historically, what has been so challenging is they've like totally like sat outside like the buying ecosystem, right? So it's just this other metric that's sitting over there, and it's not easy to bring in. But I do agree that it like really has the power to be like a really important signal that you are watching throughout the buying process, as like kind of a leading indicator of your ultimate end goal.
Yeah, I would just say very similar. We have attention data that we're using to inform some of our buying, but we're actually using it more as an engagement tool, thinking about how we're telling different stories and how those stories are capturing attention. And so it sits completely outside of the big machine that plans like, how many hotel rooms are we selling tonight and at what rate, and are we filling everything that we need to? And I think those worlds have to come together, but it's definitely not there yet.
Attention for us is a hygiene metric right now. It's not about consumer engagement. And I think one of the challenges, and we talked about this in our prep call, is that attention has come up as a buzzword, especially after Cannes. Like the last couple of years, C-suite gets back. I have to write a POV on our position on attention, and it's that every partner has a different definition. And so we really had to establish what attention means for us and where it fits in our verification stack. And I think we did that, and we're very much aligned with the IAB's position on it. How we bring it into like every day, it's really about like inventory hygiene right now, and it's manual. It's not automated anywhere, and it's just a manual post impression, like how did we do, and then we manually optimize, and that's not ideal.
It's just interesting to hear all the perspectives. I'm kind of unique among the brands here. Like we're not selling houses ourselves, right? That's what our members do. Our goal with consumers is to really create that awareness and that preference for working with a realtor. So for us, attention is hugely important because we're really just trying to create that binary behavior change. So we worked with Havas this year to really transform our campaign all around attention. We developed kind of custom attention scores for every platform we were using in our campaign, built a cost per attention metric against that to really get down and say, how much is it going to cost for us on any platform to get the right amount of attention to actually create that moment of awareness and preference? And so, yeah, that was a huge difference. I think for years, it was really hard before that for us to say, hey, we reached hundreds of millions of consumers with this message. We saw that was really disconnected from like, okay, great. Like we saw some great brand lift numbers back over here, but like what actually happened in between, and really focusing on those attention metrics and optimizing there really helped us to complete that story.
Are you tying attention to brand lift?
We are.
Yeah.
How so? Can you go a little deeper on that?
It's really about looking at individual creatives, individual placements, and where does that attention metric tie back to where we're seeing lift. And so we saw a great, just looking at our kind of first quarter highlights from the campaign, and saw one of our creatives had both a higher kind of dwell time, like folks skipping less and things like that, was one of the ones that rated well on some of the attention scoring that we did early on, and then has also created the highest lift in terms of consumer preference when we looked at which ads folks in our brand lift study had seen. So we were able to see that pulling through, which was really nice. And it wasn't the ad I would have expected, frankly. Like it wasn't our hero spot. It was a 15. It was kind of my least favorite of our ads, frankly, and not in a weird, but it was just like, it was kind of the most straightforward, like basic story. It wasn't like as funny or unexpected as some of the other creative we were running, but it really worked.
Admitted it was a bouncing QR code.
Yeah. God, I wish. I wish.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that Bennett touched on something that's really important, which is that it's not just about the media placement too, right? It's about like the creative and the messaging and making sure that everything is working together to right moment, right message, right time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, you can just go through the TVision data. It's incredibly exciting when you go through it. A lot of people think attention is just in media planning. So I think what needs to happen is some standardization. You need agencies and platforms start standardizing. I think that's what you're experiencing. Once you start to standardize, it gets in the workflow, which is so important for all of us. But I think on the other side is creative. I mean, you consistently see it where brands are running 5-6 spots, and you see one getting 70% of the media weight, and it's the worst performer. It has the least amount of presence in room. It has the least amount of attention seconds. But then you end up finding the ads that outperform. Now, before you just didn't have that data, and what we need to do is get it into the workflow so you can change. You can actually optimize the creative. You can optimize your media plan on the fly. One brand told me once, which was, don't give me a measurement report 6 weeks later that tells me I messed up. Don't do that. Like, help me so that I don't mess up in the first spot.
So how do you all think about in your formulation getting ahead of it, right? Rather than just purely retrospective. I know you guys are building tools, have tools to do that, but I'm curious about. So you're not just reading a report that said, oh, this one worked, and this how do you think about getting ahead of it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've been doing the last couple of years is this attention data, or really any media data, lived just inside of media teams. And so for 6-8 weeks of a campaign, they were sort of the keeper of the flame. But we've cracked that open. So all of our creative teams, creative agency partners, integrated marketing teams, now everybody's using the same sets of inputs. They're still disconnected. We still have work to do. But that's been game changing because those creatives can actually interpret the data and identify issues early, and then make changes to the media plan and use those signals. So it's actually been it's been hard, but it's been really productive.
Yeah, I love to hear that you've been able to get kind of the broader marketing organization and creative teams to embrace, let's say, like types of metrics that historically have been like, well, that's a media thing over there, right? So I can only imagine how much work that was.
Well, how are you thinking about it? Or how do you move your organization? You said you were moving a little more slowly than you'd like. Like, how do you accelerate that and then make sure that those metrics get into the water supply in the organization?
Yeah, it's really all about like building the right routines, right? And kind of the whole, process from start to finish. We have made progress in that area in things we've rolled out about like sales measurement, right? But it's just a constant reminder that like there's two arms here. There's media and creative, and both have to be firing in order for it to work together, and continue to emphasize like data is going to be our friend, our collective friend, to help us all do better.
Yeah, the attention benchmarking that we did with Havas really helped us bring in some new partners into the plan. I'll just use one example of kind of like Peacock versus Reddit as an example. So Peacock was one of the highest attention scoring platforms that we use kind of across our media buy. I think it was like a score of 80 of like the intention scoring that we did. We hadn't done anything on Reddit in the past. We're trying to do more in social and kind of other places. The Reddit attention score by itself was pretty low. It was like maybe more like a 25, but it was so affordable to reach our target audience. And when we actually kind of normalized that for cost per attention, it was actually more efficient than something that was such high attention like Peacock. And so like for this year, Reddit's been like a breakout star of our campaign just because it's been really efficient, even if on the surface it wasn't capturing that like massive dedicated attention that like a mid-roll spot might be. So I think that combining those things, especially as you're beginning that media buying process, to say like, how does this all work together? It might not be just this is a lower attention platform, but can you get the right audience at the right price and really make up for that other ways?
And I think what you just described is where I think the market's going, which is awesome that you guys are doing that. It's what we call an attention adjusted CPM. A lot of people think it's funny you say Peacock. I go through the data. Peacock kills it. Like high attention spots, live sports, they do really
tell
well.
them they're going to increase their prices.
But actually think about that from a media perspective. It's not that you don't buy Reddit, you just price adjust. It's that the attention adjusted CPM, and it is efficient. Again, you're getting branded seconds of attention out of the consumer. Doesn't mean you stop buying it if it's a 25. You just pay a lot less, and maybe you pay up for the one that's getting you an 80. And I don't think from a content owner perspective, they're looking at this. They all license the TVision data. I think brands are willing to pay up for high attention. You're trying to earn the consumer's attention. You're not trying to just get a cheap price. So, but I think how we get this going is not on the media planning side to start. It has to start in measurement. And you need the data to measure across all video. You need linear, you need, CTV and all your programmatic buys. You need YouTube, you need Prime Video. You got to measure everything for the brand. Once we start measuring and then the impact on sales, then I think it makes it easier to then do it in your media buying and start doing it in planning. I think it has to start on the measurement side.
I mean, this is a great place for you to jump in, Jan, because it's like what you're doing is giving people a much more granular picture, very specific. Can you talk a little bit about sort of those different platforms and how what your data is surfacing is really actionable?
Sure. I think the key thing we try to do is we try to measure everything, every video, no matter it's on TV, mobile, tablet, no matter it's YouTube, Amazon, or traditional TV. We try to measure everything using the same technology and understanding attention across everything. Because if you, I mean, to be honest, right, if you buy any CTV open programmatic today, if you get lucky, if you understand the publisher name, in many cases, only thing you know is the timestamp, which is kind of crazy, right? You spend millions of dollars, you try to buy great media, the only thing publisher lets you know is the timestamp. This is not like a Black Friday, some kind of the box, you don't know what's inside of it, right? Like this is the true inventory you're buying. So we want to make sure brands understand not only the timestamp, but also the publisher name, the show name, and even each context and also the performance, attention of that, and also the creative. So we want to really share all that information so brands can make the best decision they can make, whether it's arbitrage or guarantee or just simply planning. I think that's up to them, but that's at least what we try to do.
I mean, so there's more to go into that more specifically. Cara, I'm curious. You have a very unique sort of task, with Bear and how you communicate and how you get attention. Like what are the signals, that from an attention standpoint? I mean, you talked a little bit about your perspective on it, but like what more do you need, right, to get more deeply into your workflow and
Well, while everybody's talking, I'm thinking, for years, it's if it performs poorly, creative blames media, and if it performs poorly, media blames creative. And so when we're talking about attention, how do you differentiate between a creative effectiveness versus media quality versus audience quality? That's what I was asking. Like, how are you tying all those things together? Because we're not doing that well right now. I don't even know how to do that, and I think a lot of brands struggle with that. There's so much you're like, oh, this data, and I'm like, that's great. I don't know what to do with all that data yet. So for me, I would want to understand, again, like the way that the position we have right now is, it is part of our media quality stack, and it's one input of maybe like 4. Tying it to creative effectiveness, I don't know how to do that. And then did we get the audience right? Yes, because we do the audience on the media side. And if, that's kind of where we get stuck with it and where we are right now.
Anybody have advice, suggestions?
So we've been doing this for a long time. I think the key is to get the second-by-second attention across everything, no matter it's content or creative. Then you measure everything. Then at that point, you can normalize the effect of media.
Then you have to normalize between, was the media environment the right thing? Like Reddit, totally. I totally get what you're saying there. Like, then break it down there, because if you give me rows and rows of second data, it's gonna be a TLDR.
Exactly. So that's why we had this thing called the creative attention score. Essentially, we look at the breakthrough inside the pod. I think that's the only way to understand the true performance of the creative, because no matter how bad is the creative, if you run that in Super Bowl, it will get high attention. But that's unfair, right? That's because of media, not because of the creative. That's how we try to separate the media and creative. It sounds like you've been using creative.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, the thing that you brought to mind for me, actually, when you said kind of both content and creative, was that if I had a wish list for some of this stuff, is actually to see if you could take some of this attention scoring that's gotten so sophisticated on the ad side and actually bring it back onto the programming side, so you could understand better the context that you're operating in. I think that's something that I'd noticed was a real drop-off, is a lot of these platforms, amazing amount of data and benchmarking that you can actually do with your ads, but to actually understand like which of these shows, which of these sports, which of these environments are actually capturing my audience. I feel like there's a big difference there in terms of like the ad depth of benchmarking and understanding versus the content environments. And it sounds like you all are doing some across both of those, which is super cool, because
Yeah.
that's been a big blind spot for us. It's like we've got so much on the ad side of things, but like, where do we put these things? We don't know that this program is like way lower in terms of our audience's, attention for the actual program versus something else.
So you're highlighting a big problem that's in the industry. They measure everything down to the show level, and you want the context. Brands need to understand, what environment am I showing up in? The problem in CTV today, and so in linear, you can pick up the phone, call the network, get the show, you know where your ad's placing. In CTV, you don't know the show. It's not passed in the bid stream, it's not identified. Viant in 2024, we bought a company called Iris that works with the content owners to index every single show, so we know what show we're actually showing up on. That was a cue from what Meta's doing. Meta knows the content that you're consuming, and they match it. It's micro, niche category. I suck at chipping and golf, so I'm just sitting here streaming on this, and then they give me, wedges, and they match it with another, contextually relevant advertiser. It performs. We want to do the same thing in CTV. So what you have to do, it's great that he tells you all the shows and how they perform, but if you can't buy that way, well, totally. And what do you get when you log into a DSP and you're buying CTV and all other platforms? You log in, you get Paramount Plus. But what on Paramount Plus? They have 12,000 titles. So what is it? Which one's right for my brand? So I think that is now here. And I think that's going to be that's probably, Cara, where you probably get stuck. If you got the data, you'd be like, well, if I can't buy at the show level, what do I do?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's exactly right, and it's all about reducing the friction for advertisers and enabling them to buy that way, and to look at inventory that way. And we've been working with TVision and Viant over the last couple of weeks, and we're actually going to announce today.
Make some news. I like it.
It's your news.
We're going to announce the first attention marketplace powered by Viant for Havas clients, where they can actually engage and activate pre-selected high inventory curation against attention in real time.
In real time. So tell me more about that. Like, what does that mean functionally in a show or a live event? How has that?
Yeah, so the actual curation of the inventory has been worked on over the past couple of weeks. We've looked at programming, show level data, platform data, to score it and index it against attention scores over the last, couple of years, I guess, of data that's available. And it'll be continuously updated as the market grows and the maturity evolves. There are a certain number of markets today, and the growth of that will be by the end of the year significant. So more to come on that, but it's I think the goal of doing that was to make it easier for brands to overcome exactly like what Cara was saying, that how do you transact on it? It's one thing to plan against it, it's one thing to measure against it, but how do we reduce the friction in actually being able to buy it easily today?
And then do you have curated deals behind the scenes that kind of match that inventory?
Yes.
Is that how it pulls through?
Yeah.
Daniel, any reaction?
Sounds cool.
I mean, how like,
Yeah,
something that you feel like you could.
Yeah, I was thinking you guys went way deeper. Like, we're kind of at the surface level, I think, in a lot of ways, and certainly not yet tying it back to kind of what our investment strategy is and sort of how that is happening fast enough to make real impact. So that's kind of what's going through my head, is the cycles of these things and how we get the data and plan against it, just are not quite lined up yet, at least for, what I'm seeing. But it sounds like you're starting to crack that, which is cool.
Yeah, I think you have to start somewhere, and this gives us an entry point to start to test and measure against it and learn how we can, continuously evolve like the curation aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think when a brand starts doing it, recently, and this is as of late April, brand said to us, hey, I know attention matters, but I don't know how much it matters. He's like, I get it, but prove it to me that it matters. So when you start buying and doing exactly what she's talking about here, when you start buying based on attention, you're earning more. Let's say your overall buy gets, I don't know, a 50% attention rate or 60% attention rate. Let's say you gain 10 points. We know from the research, every 1% of attention gets you another 1% increase in brand awareness and recall. But prove to me that it works really is the brand telling you, show me sales. Now, TV is not a direct response medium per se, right? There is a latent impact. But what we see is when you start optimizing towards attention, all of a sudden you see branded search terms for your brand start increasing. Then you see site visits increase. And then depending on the category, anywhere between 3 to 14 days, depending on the category, you now see the sales impact that's happening. So we're showing that measurement reporting to the brands. Now they're bought. Now they're like, oh, and now I'm doing this and it's auto optimizing for me. That's really what you need to do.
I'm curious so hospitality, beverage, the latent impact you talk about is you kind of want that to be not that latent, right? Mm-hmm. So how were you thinking about moments and whether it's shows or sports or whatever it is, and like how quickly you can connect, attention to like brand and then sales, really, right? Like especially, somebody needs to go wants to take a trip or someone wants a beer. Like, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to think about it in 2 layers, right? Like the more you start to use this data, you will see some foundational trends, right? Like what you're starting to see, which will help kind of anchor large investment strategies, right? So you'll know broadly that this type of media or this type of partner is going to do this for me. And then I think the real kind of magic could be in the ongoing optimization with that data to drive kind of that faster purchase cycle, that faster churn, right? So it's kind of I see it working in 2 layers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the first application for us is kind of thinking about the longer latent impact that these kinds of metrics and this type of buying have. I think for us, in hospitality, the buying cycles are getting shorter and shorter. So, as you think about inventory availability and booking rooms, people are doing that, 7 to 10 days out, where it used to be you'd plan months and months ahead. And I think that's for a whole host of other reasons. But for that kind of buying to influence that would have to be, we'd have to put it in the hands of a lot more of our agency partners and teams who are making those decisions real time.
Reactions? Any? Well, I think sort of getting back to attention and sort of specific situations, right? Your CMO, John Schultz, gave me the example this morning of like if NFL football game, your team is winning or losing by 40 points, which is a Bears fan that has happened a lot over the years. Not last year, but in some cases. But your attention is naturally, or you're watching a show and it just for whatever reason, just not that interesting, or your favorite character on a reality program gets voted off. Well, so there's an attention sort of change there, right? Like how, what are the possibilities here for actually being able to react to that, to serve against it or not, right? Or just say like, okay, well, we're not gonna keep running this creative. Like I'm curious, what are the mechanics, and then how the brands around the table kind of think about, the possibilities of how to optimize for that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was really about bringing the attention metrics down to the individual placement level, not just the partner, and that was extremely helpful for exactly, I think, some of the trends that you're finding. I mean, we whether it was TikTok or Meta or Peacock, we talked about a minute ago, it was amazing to see the difference in terms of how does a story perform versus a reel versus a sort of grid post, or what's the pre-roll look like versus the mid-roll. And in many cases, we made hugely different buying decisions than we would have in the past before we started doing this attention scoring, because we just noticed a difference. And I think that's having that realization that a high attention platform does not mean that every one of their placements is high attention. And I think starting to get more specific about where you choose your spots by doing some of that integrated benchmarking and kind of cost per attention scoring can be really helpful.
Reactions?
When those examples you were giving, those are like things happening in the content, right? And so getting that in real time, I don't think is the same thing.
Totally.
And I know that there are partners out there doing it. Like for me, I think the Dreamy McDreamy would be, this affects the bid, right? Because you're in that moment, you have to answer, and it's just how much am I willing to pay for that instead of stepping out of it completely. But that real time, which happens in live sports, and we've done a bunch of testing and campaigns around, like, I didn't know until we did this Heart of the Fan aspirin thing a couple of years ago that men, or people, I think it's men, will bet on anything during a game. Like, I had no idea. And I had no idea, like, the nuances. It wasn't just the score. And so, finding companies that can give you that real time in the moment, especially in a live environment, great. But I also think that's really hard to scale, and do those things happen enough to make them worthwhile investing in, like, scaling and duplicating it?
I completely agree, and I think that it's important to look at not only the micro of like the bid and how you're optimizing in the moment, but the macro of how you're using the data long term to negotiate, buy off of, value inventory at a larger scale. So your tentpole moments, you planned for against reach and a baseline GRPs, but like what was the actual attentive GRP that you delivered or the attentive reach that you delivered, and how do you value that inventory going forward based on that? So you can look at it like the zoom in and zoom out.
And is the premium worth it?
Exactly.
Right? Small margin CPG. Nobody's booking a $10,000 vacation with us.
Well, they are with us, and if you'd like to.
I think if you just take a look at the playoffs that we just had, some of these Knicks games where just scores get out of control. So, and I'll give you what the dream scenario would be, then let's bring it down back to reality right now. So you definitely see, beginning of the game, you see 80, 90% attention rates against that, but later in the fourth quarter, they're in the 20s. So if you bought a spot and you were in the fourth quarter, you just got hosed. 30% attention rate of that, and the presence in room just drops. So they don't turn the TV. It's still on my TV, but no one's in the room, no one's paying attention. But your spot run, and you just paid for it. So that's a problem. Now, ideally, what you do is at that moment, TVision's data tells you in real time, attention's below 30%. We need to price adjust, or maybe we avoid altogether. Now, in reality, you had to book that spot in advance. You committed. I don't know how much those spots were. There were probably $500,000-$700,000, maybe more, and you just got taken. That's the reality. But what's going to change, and it's going to take time. Some of these things are tentpole events that you might commit to in an upfront. Great, but I think what you're going to see is once we start buying based on attention, then I think the content owners are actually going to wake up to that, and they're going to want to get in on that too. Because if you are, again, it might not be worth. You could say it's not worth the premium. I totally get it. It might be.
It might be.
But at the end of the day, you have to earn a certain amount of attention for the ad to work in general. And maybe it's too high, and I shouldn't buy an ad at all. So we're going to get to the point where you're going to be able to do that more in real time, or even in the upfront commitments. I think the sell side is going to start selling based off of this data. They all license TVision's data. Every streamer, television network, linear, and they all license the data, and they just don't know how to. They don't know how to activate it. They come to all the brands and say, "Look, my Olympics package gets XYZ attention, whatever it is." But you need, to everyone's point, it has to be in the workflow. You have to be able, having it on a one-off doesn't help.
But also, sort of the mechanics of actually being able to, like, how long will it take? You can tell me, like, to get to a point where things can be more, more real time, more. I mean, what is it going to take? It's almost like it's a pretty fundamental shift in how people buy. Yes.
I mean, this might sound weird, but to me, as a marketer, we spent lots and lots of years of trying to game algorithms organically and try to get attention and have the right content factories to build all of that. This, to me, just starts to take that kind of up the scale and into media and into some of the media thinking and measurement. So, but everything else has to be built on the back of it. You still have to have then the content engine who can ingest it and make something fast enough, do the math that it's worth it fast enough. And so, I think until some of those things catch up to this thinking, it's still a while out. However, it's starting to move in that direction.
Yeah, it is there in real time today. Inside of Viant, you can buy that way today. That's what we're just announcing with Havas as well. The real exciting piece.
I just ruined your pitch. No, it's real time.
No.
Right. Or did I set you up for it?
But actually, what I think where you're going and what you need is you basically need what I think is going to happen. And I won't put a timeline on it, but I think this is going to happen, which is you are going to make just-in-time creative for that spot right now that is in milliseconds. You're going to adjust your creative to match the context of that right now. That is the next piece. Because again, like you just said, it has to get into your content factory. That capability is quickly approaching. And yes, it's Gen AI, and I know a lot of brands are like, well, I'm not letting Gen AI do it. Yes, you will. Because you'll have the guardrails around it. And I think about it more like it's just-in-time creative, more like DCO in a sense. We're all doing DCO, and that's been out there for years, but dynamically compiling an ad for that spot right now that has XYZ attention or whatever it is. That is the final piece that needs to be added.
And I would say what I'm thinking about as we're talking about this is like, while we all are moving our dollars to digital buying, right? There is still this like anchoring, like legacy TV upfront that is not built to be able to operate this way. So we still continue, for all this to like work out perfectly, we still have to be moving to like fully digital transactions, which is happening over time, but there's this like anchoring media reality.
Well, there's still a lot of viewership in linear, and it is a model that doesn't look like it's dying anytime soon. But it will happen, and it will happen because the content owners are going to get in on the game. And right now, selling linear on an upfront basis is still an amazing deal. By the way, for advertisers, linear TV, we see all the data. It works pretty well. It's a great buying. Like linear, actually, it does perform.
We can't end on that. Sorry. I'm a digital guy who lived through the print, apocalypse. So I won't go there. But I mean, we do publish a magazine. But anyway, so Jan, I'm curious, sort of how you think of so what is going to change? What needs to change, right? Like how to Anna's point, like what needs to change? Obviously, the audience is the audience, right? And behavior is behavior. But like, how do you and the industry generally, IAB, all the other people who have influence on this, like sort of change the narrative?
So I've been doing this for a long time, right? So when I started, it was only linear. I was doing this like a fancy, like a slides to show attention matters, whatever, and using some data. Then after that was planning, maybe some like a easy optimization, and then we started to do pre-bid. We started to do segments before the acquisition, right? Then now part of Viant, I'm really excited about using this for the real-time bidding, because before acquisition, Chris, he's not going to tell me everything about the DSP. I'm not going to tell everything about the measurement, but now with full integration, now we can do all of that. I think the new thing we really need to figure out is now we have all the data on attention for every single impression. Viant has a lot of outcome data, right, on the other side. If we can make a prediction for everybody, every single industry, 1% of attention equals to 1% of KPI, you really care, then that would be great. It's like, okay, because I know how much attention I can increase for each brand or each industry, then this just become a no-brainer. Then I hope at that point we can push either publisher or media platform to make guarantee on the attention, which will be much, much great deal for all the buyer. And honestly, I think that's good for the industry, because today, it's just cheaper CPM, but we should really switch that to have the high quality thing. I can activate on high quality matrix, therefore I'm gonna charge more, but overall performance is gonna improve.
Charge more, you heard that, yeah.
Well, it seems like there's a really exciting opportunity there on the horizon, which is almost like programmatic buying for attention, right? Like you can obviously buy with the right price with the right audience today, but use that Knicks example, you might then be able to say, all right, I'm going to buy only the 80, 90 attention score placements on Peacock. You get that first quarter, but when Brunson goes on a run, all of a sudden the fourth quarter is not in the 30s anymore, it's in the 80s, you're getting some ads there too. Like that like kind of real-time attention buying in that almost like programmatic mindset where it's a little bit, I want to buy it at this level wherever it is. Like that starts to get pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I think it's just about testing and learning. I'm not going to pay more for higher attention, but I'm going to get what I'm paying for now. So I think like resetting the baseline of what's acceptable and what we expect from every impression or every GRP should have a baseline level of attention attached to it.
And I think what needs to change is just on that note, it's how we plan media today. It's based on reach. So you want to reach 1849 demo. Who has the largest reach of that? Does anybody know who gets the most money in television? Anyone? YouTube. They get $40 billion a year, but 40% of the time there's nobody in the room. So when you start to look at the attention scores, you think you're getting that reach, but you are not. So there's a ton of money left on the table there. I think that it has to get it. I originally said we got to get into the measurement systems, and then it's going to force everything on the front end of planning and buying.
Okay, we've got to wrap up, but can 2028, 2 years from now, attention, new standard, yes, no, maybe, Anna?
Somewhere in the middle. Much more integrated, but not fully transacting on it.
Daniel?
Yeah, I think something we're talking about and using and hopefully have made progress against.
Definitely it is, not just because it's us, but this industry has been talking about attention for a while.
Yeah.
But I think what I think the industry needs is companies that are actually putting it in practice and make it easy for them to actually do that. So I think 100% it will be a standard.
I think it'll be a standard, maybe not for everything. I think linear will be a little slower to get there, but.
I think it'll definitely be a bigger piece. I think especially with regards to waste. Like if you can think about reducing that not in the room, low attention waste in your campaign, there's going to continue to be more budget pressures on where these things show up. So I think it becomes hugely helpful for that.
Awesome.
An input and a data point, and then we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, I cannot say no to this question. Absolutely yes.
It's an easy one. Okay, great. Fantastic conversation. Thank you all. Be sure to look out for our recap because there's a lot to learn on adweek.com very soon. Thank you to Viant, and thank you all to this very, very engaging group of provocateurs. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.